We use technology as a tool to make our lives more efficient, effective, and hopefully productive. And if we can use it as a catalyst to feel more secured or insured, then that's a bonus we can all celebrate. According to my friends at the Insurance Journal, who have been covering the world of insurance for over 100 years, in 2022, there was an estimated total of 40,000 independent property and casualty insurance agents, which is an increase of approximately 4,000 agents from where the total stood in 2020. This piece of newsworthy information is good news for my friend Steve Anderson. He's the co-founder and CEO of Catalyst, an organization which was specifically founded to assist independent insurance agents discover, evaluate, and select and implement a wide variety of technologies within their organization to serve their customers better and to streamline their business operations. Anderson is also the best-selling author of the Bezos Letters, 14 Principles to Grow Your Business Like Amazon. So if you're ready to indulge yourself in decades of experience in strategic risk and business growth in the insurance industry, then you should stick around for this great conversation of consequence, because Anderson found some time in his schedule to join me this week to have an in-depth discussion about insurance, business growth, strategy, and so much more. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Steve, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you this morning all about technology and insurance. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
My pleasure, Kevin. It's great to have a conversation with you.
Absolutely, Steve. So I know, Steve, that you draw on decades of experience when it comes to strategic risk and business growth, and you also draw on that to help independent insurance agents level up their practice and being able to help their clients more efficiently. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me what makes you so fabulous, my friend.
Well, I've been around a long time. So I started my insurance career actually a long time ago, and kind of sold insurance in two different independent insurance agencies. And then really just got a fascination with the technology that agents can use that can help them sell more and be more efficient and help their clients better. And so 25 years ago, I started my own consulting firm just to do that. And I've been doing that since. My latest iteration of that is a new company I co-founded called Catalyst, which is basically doing the same thing, just improving what we offer and doing it on a bigger scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the growing popularity of independent insurance agents specifically, and why do you think it's becoming a bigger medium for people or insurance agents to explore, my friend. What do you contribute that to?
Well, I think a couple things, and certainly when the internet came along, right, there was a whole lot of conversation around getting rid of intermediaries, not needing them anymore. And the phrase I always use with insurance agents is they're remarkably resilient. And I think the issue is insurance is a complicated purchase. It's not simple. It's not like buying a book. And so people understand that at some level and want actual advice on what they should do. I mean, even Geico, I mean, literally many, many years ago had an 800 number that people could call and get their auto insurance. But what's different, I think, with independent agents, and I would say they've always been there, they're just getting more attention, I think. But there are 40,000 independent agents in the United States, and they're in the community. They're coaching Little League, they're coaching basketball, they're going to church, they're playing golf at their country club. They're part of the community and they're supporting the community. And that relationship building is extremely difficult for a technology company to replicate. You know, they thought we could just do it online. And this is a type of purchase where people like talking to somebody. And I think that's part of the reason that, in your terms, you know, they're still around and actually are growing in terms of importance.
Yeah, absolutely. And overall, Steve, as you said, you've been around for a while, so I'm curious, what do you think is the key to creating or establishing a growth mindset in business?
Well, you know, again, I have to go back to kind of my other, you know, project that grew out of my insurance, which is the book I wrote about Amazon. It's called The Bezos Letters: 14 Principles to Grow Your Business Like Amazon. And I can tell you that story if you want how it came about, but I did a deep dive into the Amazon letters to shareholders that Jeff Bezos wrote. And one of the key threads that I found in those letters is this idea of using risk strategically. So again, insurance industry, we're all about reducing risk, mitigating risk, transferring risk to an insurance policy. But there was this interesting idea and concept that Bezos had at Amazon, that you actually have to experiment so that you can invent on behalf of the customer. Well, an experiment by its very nature means you're going to fail, right? Every experiment doesn't work, but you learn from the experiments and then you iterate, change, update what you're doing. And so that's the kind of risk-taking idea that is incorporated in business growth. I put a link between risk and growth in business. So the question I started asking was, is the biggest risk business face actually not taking enough risk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve, let's dive into the story on how the book came about since you brought it up. Tell me why it was important for you to write the book and how the story came about, my friend.
Well, I never intended to write a book, but I was doing research. So this whole idea of risk and growth was just percolating. This was probably now 5, maybe 6 years ago. And I discovered the shareholder letters. I was doing research on businesses that were once very successful and literally are no longer here. They've gone out of business. So what happened? Why did that happen? And then I was looking at businesses that have been successful and continue to be successful, and why. And that's when I came across Amazon. And my first kind of idea was to put a white paper together, 1-page executive overview of each of the letters that Bezos has written to that point. Well, I say fortunately now, but my wife is in the book business and has been for many years. So I told her what I was doing. I showed her, kind of my first draft, and she looked at me and said, "This is not a white paper, this is a book." And so she sent it to the founder of the publishing company she works for. He said the exact same thing. So then that's when the book idea started percolating up. So it took about 18 months, maybe a little bit longer, to kind of come up with what the book would look like. And it was published in the fall of 2019. And it's had some success, I would say. Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller, and it's been translated into 19 different languages.
Well, you must be thrilled about that, huh?
I am. It's absolutely unexpected, and it just makes me smile when people read the book, and I get unsolicited testimonials all the time. I literally was talking to an insurance technology company startup, and they told me they had read my book, and actually two of their four kind of pillars or guiding principles in their business, one was customer obsession, which is one of my principles, and the second was it's always day one, which is another principle. And I had never met them before, but that book had impacted them, so that feels very good.
Absolutely. And Steve, since your wife is in the book business, was she your best critic?
Oh, yes. Well, actually, she's a co-author of the book. So all my ideas that I had put together, and she helped craft the book so that it's readable and engaging and those kinds of things. So it really was both of us together. And that's part of the success. It's not just me or just her, but us together. And I will tell you, we are still married.
That's the best part of the story, right?
Yep.
And Steve, you read something, a concept of about it always being day one. So, Steve, I want to share just a little bit about my personal background and why I'm asking this question. So, Steve, outside of hosting this podcast, I also work with businesses to help them infuse a more inclusive culture and help them infuse individuals with disabilities into their workforce. So I go around talking to organizations about the importance of inclusion, diversity, equity, and that sort of a thing. And it's a personal mission of mine because, Steve, at the age of 9, I was told by a doctor that I would not be able to walk for the duration of my life because of the severity of my cerebral palsy. So I use my professional life mission to sort of break down the barriers towards inclusion for folks with disabilities to enter and be sustainable in the workforce. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on what it's going to take to infuse more folks with disabilities smack in the middle of the workforce. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I have lots of thoughts, and I'm trying to distill them down for you. A couple of points for me. I have 2 grandchildren that are on the autism spectrum, so I have some direct experience. And I've worked with an organization that works with high school kids with disabilities. And what I've learned, actually a couple things, Kevin. One is the phrase that always comes to mind is, learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I've helped kids with CP, and as you know, speech sometimes is a problem. And what I've discovered is they're a whole lot more patient than I am. And so, and it's abilities. I firmly believe God does not make mistakes. And so everybody has an ability. It's learning what that ability is and how society and businesses can learn to support someone so that they can maximize the abilities they do have. And Kevin, obviously, you're a really great example of that in terms of what you've been able to accomplish. And I think businesses, something happens. My mind's going all kinds of different directions, so bear with me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens, and I see this with high school kids all the time. A typical high school kid, either sports oriented or drama or arts or whatever, interacting with let's say a high school kid with CP. Something changes when you have that interaction in both, meaning in the what I would call a typical high school kid, they get a deeper understanding of challenges that people have when you can put them together, and help them interact with one another. And so, for example, the organization I've done work with, we take high school kids with disabilities to summer camp, and every kid there has a buddy, somebody who can go along and help them get places, and everything from wheelchairs to walkers to Down syndrome to pretty much any area you might want there. I think that same principle applies in business in terms of their looking at diversity and how it actually improves. It's not charity, it's helping them improve their own work environment by understanding how anybody can contribute to the business. So I'll stop there, and we could go on for a while, but
Yeah, it's a subject that I am particularly passionate about, so I appreciate you sharing that. And Steve, I'm curious to ask you about eliminating risk, but also making smart investments in business. What do you think is the key there, my friend?
well, I don't think, Kevin, you eliminate risk. There's always risk in business. I think what you need to be able to do is look at risk and how it might be able to help you. Now, when I say, so one of my principles in my book is called encourage successful failure. And what that means is experimentation means you're going to fail, but as a organization, how do you respond to that failure? Do you punish the employee for the failure, or do you encourage that, understanding that that's another step to getting it to, again, a Bezos phrase, to invent on behalf of the customer? So one of the keys to Amazon's success, I believe, is this whole idea of customer obsession, focusing on the customer and always looking how can we improve the customer's experience with us. And that takes experimentation, that takes failure. And I can give you all kinds of examples of how Amazon has failed before they got to success. And so I do think there's a way to mitigate the downside of risk. So it's not taking stupid risk. It's not just who cares what happens, but it's being intentional. And one of the tools Amazon uses is what's called the working backward document. So at Amazon, they banned PowerPoint presentations. You won't see one at an Amazon meeting. What they require instead is a actual written document that details whatever the decision is that needs to be made at that meeting. Now, why do they do that? Because they believe writing things down gives you a better perspective and a better idea of what's required to be successful. And then if something doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work, now you have a document to go back to and say, what didn't we understand when we put this together that we should have? And so you can iterate and change and improve throughout the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know that you've been handpicked by LinkedIn as one of their world's most influential thought leaders. So I'm wondering, for you, what does the honor mean to you, and how have you helped used it rather to help inspire more people to sort of maximize their own level of excellence?
Well, one, I still don't really know why LinkedIn did that, and that's called being a top voice today. It's been changed over the last number of years, and it again is taking whatever I've learned over the many years now that I've been in business and been around, and if I can help somebody else either not do something stupid like I did, so learn from my mistakes, and or encourage somebody to do something better, then that's for me the advantage of doing that. And certainly just from a I guess a visibility standpoint, I don't like the word influencer. I don't think that's actually a goal of mine. I know it's not a goal of mine, but again, influencing in a positive way others in their journey of both business growth, but also personal growth.
Absolutely. And Steve, what do you think people can learn from Amazon's values? I know in your book you give practical examples about what everyday business owners, whether they're in insurance or not, can learn from the values of Amazon. So, what are some of the key business takeaways you think people can implement to grow their own business?
So there are 14 principles that I've identified in the book. And again, think of those as just threads that go throughout the shareholder letters. So I won't talk about all of them, but we've talked about a couple: obsess over customers, encourage successful failure. Um, um, a couple of other ones are high velocity decisions. So here's the idea. As a business grows, they tend to get more bureaucratic, meaning they add management levels, they add multiple layers of decisions. And at Amazon, they work on keeping that decision making as flat as possible. So high velocity decision making is the idea that most business decisions are reversible. There are a few that are not. And so Bezos calls those type 1 and type 2 decisions. Type 1 decisions are bet the farm, big decisions. They should be made slowly, lots of data, and ultimately with your gut feeling. Type 2 decisions are just the opposite. They're easily reversible generally. And so too often businesses waste time on getting multiple layers of approval for a project or a decision. And all of that does is slow down growth. And when you slow down growth, you slow down how you're affecting customers, and you slow down how you're inventing on behalf of the customers. And so I think that one is one I would want to highlight is decision making. And certainly for a small business, that often relies on the owner, and maybe appropriately so many times. But as that business starts growing, you hire people that you trust, because if you didn't, you wouldn't hire them. So trust them to make the decision, and understand if the wrong decision is made or you don't agree with it, it can be reversed pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Steve, as you know, the small businesses are truly the backbone of any economy. And I'm curious, how much do you value the diversification of small businesses, and how critical do you think that is for economic growth?
I do think it's critical, and I guess I would say to small business owners, often people say, "Well, I'm not Amazon, and I don't want to be Amazon." Absolutely understand that, and remember that Jeff Bezos started in his garage with an idea that the internet could be used to sell things online. Nobody knew that could happen, and so again, keep in mind you can grow as much as you want to grow. And in order to grow, you need people to help you do that. And again, as we've already talked about, Kevin, that the type of people that you can hire should be a diverse group of people because they bring diverse ideas, diverse background, additional thought processes that only help improve the business and help improve your interaction as a small business with your customer.
Yeah, and Steve, I'm fascinated to ask you about your perception of effective business innovation and what it means to be an effective business mentor. So you can take any side of that question or a two-sided question that you wish, but that's the next subject I'd like to dive in with you this morning.
Yes. So I have a little different perspective on innovation. I think innovation as a word is overused. I actually think companies need to invent. So here's the process. Experimentation allows a company to invent on behalf of the customer. Said that phrase already. That's the customer focus. How can a company make it easier for the customer? How do they make complexity simple? And these are all things Amazon has been really good at over the years. I mean, I ask people, why do you buy on Amazon.com? And typically the response is, it's easy, right? It's quick, it's easy. I get my package when I expect it, either one day, the same day, 1 day, 2 days. But innovation only happens after you've invented. And one of the problems I've identified in companies as they grow, they tend to protect whatever that product, service, or platform they invented that got them to be able to grow, and not thinking about inventing the next thing. Now, and so experimentation leads to invention, which allows innovation. So innovation is kind of the last piece of that puzzle. And so much of the conversation right now is that companies need to innovate. And I think invent is a better word.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Steve, I'm fascinated to ask you about leadership in business. And whether you think there's a void in compassionate or empathetic leadership, and whether you think it's important for leaders of companies to meet their employers or employees where they are. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yeah, and I'll go back to Jeff Bezos and Amazon a bit on that because, often Bezos and Amazon is thought that they don't care about their workers, right? And so a lot of questions around and especially fulfillment center workers. So where the products are, how they get picked once you click order and then shipped off to your front porch. And I think probably early on, Amazon was not as good as they could have been when talking about helping their workers, supporting their workers, etc. Now, I will also say I think Amazon in some ways has gotten a bit of a bad rap because people didn't understand that, for example, Amazon raised their minimum wage 2 or 3 years before all the other states did. They knew they needed to do that. They offer development and education programs for their employees to help them improve. And so I think they do a lot. And then in Bezos' last letter to shareholders before he stepped down as CEO, he identified 2 new principles at Amazon related to employees. One was Amazon was going to focus on being the best place in the world to work. And the second was the safest place to work. Now, you can argue, we can talk about whether they have done a good job or not, but their focus on hiring veterans, their focus on hiring people with disabilities that are able to do the work, is a change that's going on at Amazon. And I think that's a positive thing happens there. And I think, again, that's a model for other businesses to be aware of what can be done, what a business can do to be more inclusive and more welcoming to a wide variety of employees and abilities and skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Steve, how do you define business prosperity? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think, prosperity, certainly in kind of first thought is it's tied to profits. So businesses in business to make a profit for their owners and support their employees and shareholders if they have them. I think we're seeing now a additional view of businesses being able to support the community and be a better partner in terms of how they interact with the community where they're at. Again, be that a large corporation or a small business that's in a town. And so those are things that I think the conversation around diversity has helped improve people's mindset when they think about what a business should do. It's certainly still profit, because if a business doesn't have profits, they can't give back to the community, and it's modifying that to a degree in order to help better support the community.
Yeah, and Steve, for you on a personal level, what's the best part about living life, whether it be professionally or personally? What brings you the biggest smile, my friend?
Well, two things immediately come to mind. I will say personal first. I have 7 grandchildren. As I mentioned, 2 of them are on the autism scale, and so they put a smile on my face, as you say. So they're really fun. We have 3 of them that live near us, and 4 that live an hour and a half flight away. So we see them as much as possible. I think professionally, I'll go back to a comment I made earlier in that if the ideas I've been able to put together on business growth and customer obsession and some of those kinds of things help a business to grow and help a business to think differently about how they grow and how they interact with the community and their employees, that puts a smile on my face too. I mean, that's just fulfilling to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, my final question for you this morning goes something like this. Steve, if I told you that they were going to make a movie about your life and they asked you to narrate the beginning of the movie on how you wanted your legacy to be defined both personally and professionally, how do you think you would narrate the start of your own movie?
I have to think about that one a minute. Um, um, a couple thoughts I'm swirling with a little bit. One is um, he left his mark on the world and um, left a legacy for his family and for his business friends. Again, I actually done an exercise where you think about your you I can't get the word out.
Eulogy, how about that?
Thank you. You
I'll
can
help
help
you
me
out.
with that. And what? And so I'm still working on doing things that bring me joy and help others as much as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Steve, out of personal curiosity, you seem to have a very robust office of things behind you there, my friend. So I'm wondering, where is your passion for collecting things coming from? And what's your favorite thing you've got in your office, my friend?
So So each shelf has a different theme behind me. So one of the shelves, this one here, those are all crowd-funded projects that I've got done, meaning Indiegogo, Kickstarter, stuff I've bought. The other shelf above that is more kind of Amazon related. The top shelf on the right is my dad, who was a great inspiration to me. So he was a fighter pilot in World War II, and he worked for a computer company for 36 years, I think. So those are just different mementos. What's my favorite? I actually have to look, so bear with me a second here. I think if you see the adding machine right here,
Yes.
that's an old, so he worked for a company called Burroughs Corporation. That's an old adding machine that they used to sell. And my dad, when he first got into that business, he sold accounting machines in Southern Texas. And so then got into computers, and that might be where my technology and computer, interest first grew out of. So,
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you for sharing that with me, Steve. And I'm curious to finally ask you if people want to get connected with you or Catalent, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
so two ways. One is LinkedIn. So typically Steve Anderson or Steve Anderson Insurance, you should be able to find me. Love to connect with you. Just let me know you heard me on this podcast. Listen to this podcast, and that would be great. Second way is for the book and more information. The website is thebezosletters.com. And there's more information there. And if you're interested in the book, it's on Amazon.
Well, fabulous, Stephen. I have to tell you that I had a most delightful time talking to you about insurance, technology, life, and everything in between, my friend. I want to thank you for the good work that you do to move the needle of progress forward for all of us to learn from. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, it was my pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.